Hi, good morning, all of you. Welcome to the EACT organized by pharmacad. Today, let us talk to Ms. Richa Biyani Goel from Glenmark Pharmaceuticals. She has had a 10-year of work experience with the pharmaceutical industry. She has done her bachelor's from Mitabai College and her post-graduation diploma in human resources from Wellington Institute of Management. She is currently associated, as I've already said, with Glenmark Pharmaceuticals Private Limited, and she's working as a business partner for dermatology business. In her prior assignments, she has also supported the gynecology and the chronic business. Today, we'll learn about CV preparation, HR skills, and interview etiquettes from Ms. Richa Goel Biyani. Richa, if you could please take over the session.
Sure, Pranav.
I'll just give you the screen
Hmm.
for screen sharing. Yeah, you can share your screen now.
Yeah, just a minute. Is my screen audible? Is my screen visible?
Not yet.
Just a second. Is my screen visible now?
No, Richa. No, Richa.
Yeah, good morning, guys. We are still trying to get the error resolved. Kindly just bear with us for a minute. We'll get back to you at the earliest. Yes, Richa, your screen is visible now.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Perfect.
Pranav.
All the best. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, thank you. Great. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Richa Goel Biyani, as already stated by Pranav, that I believe I come from Glenmark Pharmaceuticals, right? So, to begin with, I hope you and your family are safe during these unprecedented times, right? I'm sure these times have created a lot of restlessness and anxiety amongst each one of us in our own ways, right? But I really hope, there's one thing for us, all of us, to be thankful for, is that we are all safe and locked in the best place in this world, which is our respective home with our families. So I'm sure there's nothing much more that we can really be thankful for. So, to begin with, I think all of us in our own ways are dealing or are anxious in our own ways, right? Especially the students today. They're really thinking on, what are we, when will the college reopen? When will our exams happen? When will we kind of go back to our college? When will the lectures begin? Will we get the jobs of our choice? Will we be able to pursue the career of our choice, right? There are a lot of questions that's really kind of in the head of all of us. What's going to happen next? We really don't know. So let's understand one thing very clearly. We are all a part of the healthcare industry, right? Healthcare as an industry is bound to grow and flourish in at any given point of time, right? As far as there are lives, healthcare industry has to grow, has to be there, right? And if the healthcare industry stays, so will the roles of each one of us, be it into R&D, be it into QA/QC, be it into your sales and marketing, so on and so forth, right? So one thing for us to be really assured is that things are going to remain positive for the healthcare industry for each one of us. Now, if I really have to think, things are going to be fine. We will go ahead. Everything will fall into place. Our exams will happen, if not today, probably 1 month, 2 months down the line, and we will have to start preparing for our jobs, for our careers that are going to begin at any given point of time, right? So let's start thinking of what is in the focus area, what is in the control area of us as of today, right? So if I really think what is in my control, so in my control, I really have that can I chart out my plan? Can I start preparing my resume? Can I start figuring out that which is going to be my dream company in the industry that I wish to pursue, right? Uh, can I start utilizing and understand, what is the success story that's on for my dream company? How are they surviving during these tough times? How are they kind of progressing during all of these times, and how can we kind of understand and learn from them? What are their success stories, right? So I think what I understand is that in spite of whatever times are on, I still have a lot of time at my hand to prepare in terms of my job interview. okay, in terms of, what really career I want to pursue? Can I start researching about the company? So on and so forth, right? Because these are still very much in my hand and my control to utilize my time, right? And this is exactly where my topic today comes to, right? To be best prepared for the job interview that you wish to apply for, right? What all things can I start thinking on? Perfect. So I think my course learnings for the day are going to cover the four important points that are pretty much in our control and what we can really start doing on. First, it's a resume writing. I think it's a very important piece when you start thinking that you want to do a job or you want to build a career, right? So how do we write a resume? What should be a perfect resume? How it should be that it should get shortlisted or screened and within the first time itself by the recruiter. So that's something that we will learn about the resume writing. Second, it's preparation of the interview. My document is ready, my skills and knowledge, everything I've mentioned. But what all preparation do I need to do to give a very good, perfect interview to the interviewer, right? Third are some interviewing grooming tips. So we all know what are the grooming tips. We should look professional, we should have this look, that look. But overall, just a brief summary on how our grooming should be as perfect for our first round of interview or for our first time when we face an interview with the recruiter. Last but not the least, some typical questions for a personal interview, that which are the questions that can really come up. Can I have some answers prepared for it? How can I be confident while giving away those answers? Is something that we will indulge into, right? So let's begin with something which is the first topic, which is for the day, that is resume writing. Okay. So what is the first word that comes to mind when you think of a resume? Okay. You think it could be a one pager document or a two-pager document. It has your academics, it has your your knowledge, your experience, a few things here and there, that you really have, that you have to put in. But is it important to give a structure to the resume? Answer is yes, right? So before we go to the structure and what should be the content, I think these are the words that we interchangeably end up using or keep hearing, right? In terms of what is a resume, right? What is a CV? What is a biodata? Are they all similar, or do they really kind of have different meanings to attach to it? So first, let's understand the difference between what is a resume, which is often used by the terminology that we really come across. So let me tell you, resume in Latin means to sum up. That is what it really means. So going by the meaning of what it really means, resume is a concise document. It is a brief summary of your skills and experiences. Okay. It is usually just a one-page long document. It does not exceed your one page. Plus, it is usually suitable for entry level to 1 to 2 years of experienced graduates. Okay. Second could be curriculum vitae, right, which we say as CV very often. Again, in Latin, CV means it's a course of life. So when I talk that I'm talking about the course of life, it is difficult to limit yourself within one page, right? That is why it is an in-depth document describing a whole course of your academic and your professional career. It usually runs from 2 to 3 to 10 pages long, right? And it's more suitable a CV when you're applying for an academic job or a research fellowship, right? Third is the biographical data that you have. So your biographical data, which we refer as biodata, it basically includes in-depth details of your personal and your professional life, right? It is again kind of run into multiple pages, right? When do we really end up using biodata? I think you would have heard, when you go for the matrimonial sites that you really apply for, you end up sharing a lot of details about your family background. What does your father do? What does your uncle do? What does your sister do? It comprises a lot of your personal details as well. And that is why, by the very term biodata, they are suitable for the matrimonial purpose or when you're applying for the government jobs. Okay. So as of now, what our takeaway is going to be that here, all of us who are sitting, the students, we are going to focus on how to prepare a one-pager document, which is the resume. It's not going to be CV. It's not going to be biodata. So from now on, for the next 2 4 years, while we are kind of in the start of our career, we are going to prepare the document which is known as resume, right? Now, next year I've shown you a few bad resume or CV examples, which are really there. So what's really bad about these resumes? I mean, if you just take a look, a clear sneak into what they are, right? If I see the first document of the resume, I see there's a lot of information that's been mentioned in a very cluttered manner. right? It's not going to be very easy for the interviewer or for the person who's scanning a resume to read and to understand what's on. There are some sections that's given, but too much of information in work experience, a lot of paragraph that's written. If I see the second resume, right, where it's written curriculum vitae, so I don't think on the resume you did not mention it's a resume or CV as a heading. You do not require that. The personal information is almost taking away one fourth of the page. Where you're mentioning the address, your nationality, your gender, marital status. So overall, it does not give too much of information. Again, on page two and page, or rather in a sample two and sample three, you see that the person has mentioned the scores that he's achieved in every subject. Now, again, that's not really a matter of concern for the interviewer. They don't want to see subject-wise how have you scored, how have you not scored, right? The person in the third resume has written about the work details in a tabular form. However, the table is not very clear. So the person may end up reading the first row and may mix up with the third row or the third column and may not read your resume well. So that's why these overall resumes are not the perfect example on how your resume should be, right? So that the question then comes in, which is what is really a resume? How should it really end up looking perfect that we have? So remember, your resume is such that it introduces you even before you are able to introduce yourself, right? So it has to be very clear, easy to understand, and should be able to stand out amongst all the resumes that are getting scanned, right? So firstly, the best thing about a layout of a resume has to be easy to read. In one go, the interviewer should be able to figure out where's your name, where do you stay, what's your work experience, what are your academics, so on and so forth, right? Second, the information that you present should be in a crisp and not be cluttered, right? It should be in bullet points, easy to read and scan through, and not too much of information that comes on the resume. Third, the text, the font, the size, it's always a question. There are so many font sizes available. Which one should I opt for? Which one should I not? So this is something that you can just think of. A Calibri, Arial, or a Times New Roman are often considered as the preferred text that can be, utilized for the font. The size, which should be nice, crisp, and not too much of information that comes on the resume. The font, the size, the color, the font, the size, the color, the font, the size, the color, the font. So these are some of the things that you should be able to consider while preparing your resume. Okay. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Probably there was some internet connectivity issue, right? So we were on the text on where the font and the size should be. So I had said that it should be Calibri, Arial, or it could be Times New Roman. And the best size that you could really go for is for the size 11, right? The section headers should be in bold. So you need to have sections that you need to create in your resume, which clearly indicate which are your academic section, which is your work experience section, which are the section for your awards and certifications that you would want to show, right? Preferably use only one color while you are writing a resume, right? The best is to keep everything in black. Usually because the recruiter, when they download a resume, when they take a print of the resume, it's usually in black and white print. They don't really take a colored print. So even if you would have put in colors, it may not be visible. However, if you really wish to have, or probably when you're going to present your resume on your own, which is hand given, so you can ensure that the section headers could be in a color which is at the max below. But would request do not keep too many colors in your resume. Next, expand all abbreviations at the first time of occurrence that comes in your resume, right? So, for example, when the word CV was there, right? So, the word curriculum vitae was important to write and then CV, which I can keep using it in multiple times, right? So, ensure you expand all abbreviations at the first point, however obvious they are when they occur in the resume for the first time. Okay. Next, justify your resume so that the text is evenly distributed, evenly between the margins. Very, very important. Right. Next, there's always a question that, when I have my resume saved, do I send it in a Word format, PDF format? How should it be? It's best to always share a resume in a PDF format. So there are no chances of, any kind of, words being added over there or any problems occurring. Right. So it's always better to share the resume in a PDF format. Last but not the least, there's always this question that comes up to our mind that should I really add photos to my resume, right? Now, this is something that I would say is optional, whether you would want to add photos to your resume. In a lot of countries, having a photo resume is ideally banned, right? Because it can create a lot of discrimination. Huh? It's in a way it's better because I feel let your resume do the talking in terms of your skills and knowledge that you possess rather than a person forming an opinion basis a photograph of your resume, be it for good or be it for bad, right? And since it is so subjective in nature, it could be such a gray matter, gray area is what I would say. So it's best to avoid to upload photos. However, if you still are keen that you would want to put your photo, you can always place it to the right hand side topmost corner of your resume, right? As I said, they are optional, they are not mandatory. And they're not even a big no no, at least in India, right? Now, we have the layout ready. But what about the content? What the look and feel is great, but what is the content that I really need to add in, which becomes very important. Now, know this thing that once you have been shortlisted by the person, by the interviewer, he has more or less selected you basis your content, right? So, what is the content that you really need to put in? It all begins with personal information, right? So, what all details do I need to put about my personal information? It begins with your name, right? Which has to be on the topmost left hand side corner. It has to be probably, if it's my resume, I would say it as Richa Goel Biyani, right? I will not write it as name colon and then Richa Goel Biyani. Just directly say Richa Goel Biyani. Okay, that has to be the first one and it has to be in bold. Second in the line, it has to be your date of birth. So you can mention date of birth and you can write it in the format of DDMMYY. So for example, if my date of birth is 25th May, so I put it as 25th May 1995, right? Very clearly that has to be mentioned. Do not mention your age instead of date of birth. It is always better to write your date of birth for it. Third could be your contact details. So what all does has to be a part of your contact details? It has to be your email address. It has to be that email address that probably you check very often, say once a day or probably every alternate day, right? Ensure your email IDs are not fancy. They are very simple, whether it's name dot surname or however you want to keep it. They cannot be, like coolguy93 at gmail.com or anything of those sort. It has to be probably that, Richa.Goel or Richa.Biyani at the rate gmail.com. A very simple one. Next is a mobile number. Of course, you may have multiple numbers that you're using. It's always best to mention one mobile number that you will always be reachable on, right? Other thing that you can add, which is now these days a lot of people add in, are your custom LinkedIn URLs, okay, that you can add in your contact information. Next comes a line of your permanent address. Now, this is very important where you write your address. which also includes your city, state, and the PIN code. Why is this really important? Because a lot of times we are screening resumes to place people which could be anywhere in India, right? Or if somebody hails from a city, that person does not know where does the city belong from, a state will always give clarity to the recruiter. Hence, it's very important to mention your city details, your state details, as well as your PIN code in your resume. So this is all that I really require in the personal information. I don't require your father's name. I don't require any further additional details. What's really what are they doing? What's not there? Or how it is. Next, we move on to career objective, right? So what is career objective? Why is it really important, or is it mandatory, or it is optional? So one, yes, career objective, mentioning career objective is optional. However, in the given scenario, it's always preferred by most of the candidates. They prefer mentioning the career objective, right? So what should be a career objective? Your career objective is something which has to be concise, in less than 100 words, to the point, stating about what are your skills and knowledge, and how are you going to contribute to the company, right? The interviewer, when it reads a career objective, he or she just wants to know that what is a career that you're looking at, what are the skills that he's looking at the job that he wants to offer, and do you have those qualities that he would want to take it ahead, right? So some examples of your career objective could be like, to work for an organization which provides me the opportunity to improve my skills and knowledge to growth along with the organization objective, right? For a person like me, if I feel, oh my God, it's too confusing, I don't think I'll be able to do it. So keep it very simple. It could be to secure a challenging position in the field of sales, probably because I'm going to apply for the sales role, right? So as to utilize my skills for the organization and the individual growth, right? These are some samples. However, if you still want to keep it very simple, you can customize your career objective. Let me tell you, your career objective is something that does not remain standard across all the companies and the roles that you apply for. This can be and rather should be customized depending upon the role that you're applying for, and it matches with the role that you are really aspiring for, right? So figure out what kind of career objectives would you want to place, which you'll be able to talk about confidently when asked in your interview. Third are your academics. As freshers or as with 1 or 2 years experience, your academics play a very important role while being shortlisted, right? So those have to be clearly mentioned. Preferably, the best way is to present it in a tabular format, and it has to be in descending order. So if I'm a BPharm graduate, I would start that my first degree is of BPharm. I've completed from which college, which university, the year that I've passed out, and my scores that I really have, whether it's in percentage form or is it in the form of CGPA, right? Then I would talk about my standard 12th. Okay, again, which college, which university, the year of passing and the percentage, and then about your standard 10th. Now, a lot of us people who have great numbers would, of course, want to flaunt that I've got my 80 in my percentage was 83, 84, or 78. But there are few of us who do not have great marks to share, right? Probably if we have some really low marks and we are a little finding it awkward to write the percentage. I would still recommend write your percentage because that shows it gives the clarity to the interviewer on what your scores are. Because usually when people avoid the scores, you end up thinking twice that, okay, maybe this person does not have scores and he's trying to hide the same, right? At the same time, if you've not scored well, try and defend yourself in terms of the scores at what story would you want to build in. That probably in standard 10th and graduation you've scored well, but in standard 12th, your slips or marks scored by certain percentages, right? But avoid not sharing this information is something that you should not do. You should be true to yourself and to the interviewer and mention these details very clearly, right? Next, we have is business exposure, right? So what is business exposure? So many of us while pursuing our graduation or probably before or after doing our 12th, we end up having some work experience. It could be part-time, it could be full-time, right? So mention about your work experience. Write the name of the company that you have worked with. Be very specific about the period, right? So for example, if I have worked with some company, I put ABC Company Limited, and I'll say work from probably July 2018 to November 2019. Okay. Month and year become very important for the interviewer to know that for how long have you been associated with the organization, right? In a couple of points in bullet form, mention about your roles and responsibilities on what that work really comprised of. Next would be your projects and initiatives, right? So that would include your summer internship, your winter internship that you've been a part of certain projects. Again, mention in the similar form, mention the company name, the period, even if it's for 2 months or even if it is for 1 month. mention about it, right? Explain the roles and responsibilities that you've managed while doing that internship. Or if you've not done any internships, so probably you've participated in some case study challenge of your college, in so and so year. So feel free the initiatives that you've taken from your end and ensure that you put that in your resume. Okay. Next comes positions of responsibility. Now, what are the positions of responsibility? The interviewer wants to know, have you really, what are the responsible areas? What are the areas of responsibility that you've undertaken besides your studies that you have? So probably it could be that, I've been the sports secretary of my college for the year, 18, 19. Or probably it could be that I've been a member of the students council, in my college for so and so year. So mention these are positions of responsibility that you have done and you've organized, and you should definitely mention it in your resume. Okay. There are chances that you may not have any positions of responsibility. If you do not have it, you can skip this section. But if you think you have managed to, brag in any of them, please do highlight them in your resume, right? Next, about your content becomes your achievements, awards, and certifications, right? So they could be something like securing. I've secured a run as a position in a national level case study competition, probably that I would have participated in, or probably I've received several awards in the athletics competition at junior college level, right? Or probably some awards of recognition in dramatics at school level. So there could be various achievements and awards that you would have done, or some certification course that you have done. However, always remember to mention these details in the descending order. Descending order means from the latest till the oldest, because school details, your school certifications, your school awards are probably few years down the line. So we have to talk about the latest ones that we've done, then we go to your junior college, and then we go to the school certificates. So ensure the descending order while you mention about your all of these things. Next comes about extracurricular activities and interest, right? So what are extracurricular activities? We've always heard, that you should have co-curricular, extracurricular activities. So co-curricular activities, when we talk about, it's almost an extension of your academics, right? Like probably participating in an elocution, right? Or probably participating in a poster competition. It's more of a co-curricular. It is still within their course of line. But when I talk about extracurricular activities, it basically implies that I am indulging into activities that are beyond my classroom walls, right? There's some additional responsibilities, there's some additional areas that I really want to get into. It could be something like being associated with a NGO, doing some work, like probably working towards awareness of children education, and an active member of child rights and youth. So that you have probably with CRY. So you can mention this, right? It is beyond a classroom curriculum. Organize probably donation camps in the college campus that you have really gone about. You've participated in some competitions that you would really want to highlight it. Feel free and do add about it. The interviewer wants to know that are you capable of multitasking, or have you only confined yourself to the four walls of your classroom and only done well in studies, right? It talks a lot about you, your resume, your personality. So if you've done those things, highlight it over here. I've also mentioned over your extracurricular activities and interest, right? Interest could be your hobbies. Now, if you have interest, probably you've participated in various sports, or you are into the habit, or you are into the interest of reading some books, or writing short stories or writing poems, highlight it over here. However, remember one thing: all your hobbies will not form a part of your interests that come on a resume. Like for me, it could be, I love watching movies, but that is probably a recreational activity, right? Listening to music, playing cricket. Anybody and everybody has those, interests or hobbies. So those cannot be a differentiating factor when you're writing it on a resume, right? So figure it out. Think about, what activities are you into and what hobbies and interests can you write. Those are preferably that are probably developmental in nature for you, or have helped you grow as an individual. Put them over here. Do not forget, if I am reading fictional books, I should have very clear information. The last 10 books I've read, what were they about? What were the authors? Which is my current book that I'm reading? Which are the next two in the pipeline? It cannot be something that I've read one book once a year and I say that it's into my interest. That's not possible, right? Your interests and hobbies are such for which you spare time intentionally and ensure you indulge into those activities at least on a weekly or a fortnightly basis, if not on a daily basis, right? So think through about your answers and your responses and accordingly put them in your resume, right? Next, it's a declaration. This is again an optional, it's not mandatory for you to add in your resume. But probably after listing all of this information about your personal information, your academics, your business exposure, your achievement certificates, you can write one line that I solemnly declare that all the above information is correct and to the best of my knowledge that I've shared. Okay. As I said, it's optional. It's not necessary to put declaration, but you definitely can do that. Right. So this is a couple of good sample resumes that I've really put in, which covers all the points that I've spoken about. If I talk about the first sample on the left, it talks about your name, your date of birth, right, your contact details, your address, right, your career objective that you have, which is in very simple lines, academics in a tabular format, again in the descending order, your business exposure, summer internship, positions of responsibility, achievements, extracurricular, and declaration, right? Vis-a-vis the second resume, again, I don't have a business exposure. I just have summer internship. I can leave that thing blank. Probably my summer internship is my business exposure. I may not have a full-time working experience. I would not really fill in the details, right? I have projects and initiatives. I've put achievement certificates. I have certain extracurricular activities I've put in there. I don't wish to put the declaration. It is absolutely fine, right? If you are still wanting to add in your photos, as discussed earlier, you can put it on the right hand side corner of the resume that has been left blank in the corner. If you really wish to add your photographs, that could come in there, right? So this is all about your resume, how your resume needs to look, how is it simple to read. Remember this thing that once you get shortlisted means you have given certain information in the resume and the employer is really happy and positive about it, right? They really want to interview you to figure out, are you able to deliver the promises that you've made in your resume, right? I have written about so many things, but am I able to explain, am I able to convince the employer on what are things and tasks that I have really done? That's going to be the next major role that we look into, right? And that's what brings me to the next topic of our course, which is interview preparation, right? So I have my resume in place, everything is fine. So what all do I really need to prepare, once my resume is in place? Do I need to practice? Do I need to think about a few things? Answer is yes, right? So the first preparatory stage, that you start thinking and you start preparing on is on your first impression, right? We've often heard saying that first impression is the last impression. There are scientists that have proven that when you meet a person, within the first 5 to 7 seconds, you form an opinion about the person, right? So what do you think? How does a person form an opinion? It could be via your appearance. It could be via your body language. You know, 55% of our body language is what kind of helps a person form the opinion, right? So what all could a body language involve, right? First is smile. Imagine I've entered an interview room and I'm looking very tense. I'm really nervous. It doesn't give a very comfortable position for the interviewer and interviewee. You enter the room confidently, enter with smile, be seated, sound confident, look confident. you know I'm sure it makes you at ease, it makes the other person at ease, right? Next is a handshake. Okay, so I'm sure you can see the image that I've put of a handshake. Very importantly, when you enter in the interviewer's chamber, you end up having a firm handshake. Now, what do you mean by a firm handshake is what exactly the picture shows on the screen, right? There are handshakes of various types where you just ensure that the fingers meet, or the hands are not really met well. Now, what does a handshake convey? A firm handshake conveys that you're a very confident personality, right? A weak handshake kind of conveys that you're nervous, you're conscious, you're anxious, you're not confident. It talks so much about your personality, right? At the same time, when I talk about a firm handshake, it should not be for too long. It cannot last for 5 and 10 seconds. Ensure you have a firm handshake, and within 2 or 3 seconds, your hand is out of it, right? That is how a professional handshake is supposed to be. Next is the eye contact. It may seem as very basic for most of us that, of course, when we talk, we have an eye contact maintained. But there are a lot of us who do not maintain the eye contact, right? So when I've come for an interview and I don't look at the interviewer, and I look here and there, it kind of conveys that I am nervous, I'm conscious, I'm anxious, and it doesn't give a very positive image about you. So look into the eyes of the interviewer while answering the questions and maintain the eye contact. When I'm saying maintaining the eye contact, I do not mean that you have to stare at the interviewer, right? There's a difference between maintaining the eye contact and staring. So please ensure you maintain the eye contact. Next is your posture. Very important, right? So how am I sitting straight, while I'm being waiting to be called for the interview? Am I slouching or am I sitting absolutely straight? Very important. Before the interview, during the interview, or after the interview while you're waiting. Because you don't know, there are so many people passing through and they end up seeing and they form an opinion about you. So ensure that you're always sitting straight while you are giving the interview and while you're there, right? Next comes as hand gestures. Many a times, a lot of us don't know what to do with our hands. A few people, including me, end up using our hands very often while explaining some concepts. It's absolutely fine. Some of us, when we don't know what is to be done, the best is to place your hands on the lap. Okay? Don't put it in your pocket and don't sit with your hands folded. It's not appreciated. It talks about you being a close personality, right? If you're very confused, just ensure that your hands are kept on your lap while you're doing the talking. If you're not comfortable using them while giving the interview. Next, acknowledgement. It's a very important factor which many of us end up missing it. When a person is talking and a person nods and acknowledges what he's hearing, it gives a person confidence that yes, what I'm trying to convey is being comprehended by the person who's listening to it, right? It kind of conveys that yes, you are also an active listener listening to the person. So always ensure that you are able to acknowledge when your interviewer is talking by nodding, right? These are very few things that I've written as first impression, but they end up playing a major role when you go for your first time interview, right? Next, what else can I really prepare for? Probably I'm pretty much fine. I maintain my eye contact, my handshakes are great. I ensure that I'm smiling always. These things are there. So, what is the next stage of preparation can I really do for my interview? The next is knowing your resume well. Extremely important, right? You have to know every word of the resume that you've mentioned, know the order of what order have you mentioned, know the contents, know the meaning of every word that's mentioned on your resume. Extremely, extremely important, right? A very simple example, career objective. Why have you mentioned a career objective in your resume also needs an answer that you really need to have. What is a career objective you've mentioned? If you don't remember word by word, are you at least able to explain the essence of your career objective? Very important, right? So please ensure that you know your resume word by word when you are going for or appearing for an interview. Third, research about the company that you're going to apply for, right? So if I'm going to XYZ company, go to the company website, study the company website, okay? Know the history, know the owners, know the profits, know their brands, okay? Know their success stories, know what are they famous for. Study in a way that the interviewer is going to be surprised that you know or you have much better information about the company that he or she has. That's a kind of level of preparation that you can do while you research about the company, right? That's how you should be that thorough when you're going to apply for a company interview. Next, make the employer feel important, right? This is very important. So why is this? So when you go for an interview, don't just go that saying that, oh, I just want to apply in a pharma industry. So, beat any company and I'm ready to join. Never ever show that. Always kind of show that you admire the company. How are you going to admire the company? So for example, if you're applying for Cipla, Cipla is known for its respiratory segment. So talk about that Cipla is about the respiratory segment. Probably you can relate the projects that you've done in the respiratory segment, and how do you think you can meet the requirements because of the experience that you have, and how will you contribute for them to achieving their goals in that segment, right? If you're going for a GSK, you know about the product called augmenting, which is so much that they're famous for. Talk about it. Talk about their success stories. Relate how do you want to aspire and be known as augmenting is for GSK. How do you want to be known in that company, probably with that brand name? Okay. Or, when it comes to Glenmark, it is about Candid. It's known as the Candid company that people really know for because it's their first flagship product. So ensure you know about it and make the employer feel important. Make them feel that yes, you are the company that I want to apply for, I am aspiring for, and it's my dream job to apply over there, right? If you see these points in standalone, you will think, oh, these are very simple for me to do, or these are basics that one should know. But trust me, this needs to come in your natural flow when you talk about, and that will happen only and only when you practice, practice, and practice again, right? It doesn't have to sound very artificial or fake when you're giving your interviews. So while you're practicing, ensure that you cover all of these points, right? I think the best way to practice is probably, as I say, look into the mirror, practice then, or do some mock interviews along with your peers or your seniors. Understand what are you doing right, what are you conveying, what your body language is conveying. Are you able to cover these points? That will really help you to kind of master the age of the art of giving interviews when you go for the interview itself. Okay. So now we know what is a resume. Our resume document is ready. We know, what are the kind of preparations that we really need to do before we give the interview. So next, what's the next most important thing that we're really going to come on? We're going to come on the grooming tips when we go for the interview, right? I spoke in my earlier segment that, probably 55% of your body language is what gets conveyed when you enter the recruiter's chamber or the HR's chamber. So appearance is going to be of prime importance, right? Whenever you go to meet a person, you want to look at your very best. You have to ensure that top to bottom, you are absolutely perfect, right? So, what are a few things that we really can take care of? So, if I really talk about grooming etiquettes for men, that would really come in. First would be your attire, right? Your formal attire. Your clothes have to be well ironed. Your shirts have to, it has to be a formal shirt. It cannot be a checkered shirt. A checkered shirt is not considered to be informals. So, are you wearing a formal shirt? Are you wearing formal trousers? Okay. And are you wearing a tie? Very importantly, none of the colors of your shirt, trouser, and tie have to be flashy. Okay, be very conservative in your dressing sense. Okay, it should be a light colored shade shirt, which is plain, dark trouser, which is preferably black or blue, and a tie that really matches with the color combination, not with too many designs. Wearing a blazer is ideally optional. It's not mandatory. If you're comfortable wearing it, you definitely can wear a blazer and go. And if you're not comfortable or you do not have one, it's absolutely fine if you're not able to wear a blazer, right? Next comes formal belt. Very important. I'm sure most of the guys attending it would be knowing that your formal belt should match with the color of your shoes. Very importantly, right? Your formal shoes, they have to be properly polished and they should be preferably of black or dark brown color. Don't get into the other shades when you're going for an interview. They have to be of black or brown color only. Okay. Last but not the least, your formal socks. Your socks, the color of your socks. You may think that, oh, how much is a socks really seen? Is that really relevant? But yes, it goes to talk a lot about your personality. So ensure that the color of your socks should match with the color of your trouser. And if you're not able to do that, at least ensure it has to be black, come what may. Okay. Keep it simple, keep it conservative, but keep it the best, right? Your attire goes a long way to form an opinion about you. Next comes about your face, right? What do I really need to do about my face? So definitely when you're going for an interview, you have to be clean shaven, okay? There with no stubble, very important, right? If you are already having a mustache, ensure that it is well trimmed, right? People are very used to keeping beards. Ensure that it is avoided unless you've kept it in case of religious reasons. Otherwise, it's better to have a clean shaven face when you're going for an interview. Next is about your hair. Your hair has to be well shampooed. Avoid oily hair. Avoid adding a lot of gel in your hair. That's really in. Avoid all of that. Be as simple as you can when you go there. But ensure your hair is neatly combed and well trimmed. Very important. Next, your hands and nails, right? A lot of us are nervous. We end up getting sweaty, or we go to the restroom, our hands are wet. Ensure that when you go for a handshake, your hands are completely dry and clean, right? It's very, very important. Plus, your nails should be extremely well trimmed and clean, right? If you're used to keeping that, it's great for you. But if not, ensure you take care of these four things before you go for your interview, right? These are some things which are more of a non-verbal communication, but that gets noticed and that gets picked up when you go for an interview, right? Similarly, we can have some grooming etiquettes for women, right? When it comes to attire. So, of course, you can also wear your formal shorts and trousers when you go for. However, a lot of us would want to wear salwar kameez to when we go for. So, go for small prints or self colors. Again, they don't have to be with jazzy and too many prints or kind of some text written on it. Not at all. Avoid it. Okay. Your shoes could be formal shoes, if you're wearing your trousers, or you could wear a pair of small heels or a flat pair. It all depends upon you. Just ensure that you stick with a black or brown pair. Avoid the colors of red, pink, yellow, green, all others. Keep it to black or brown pair that you wear for your interview. Face. For girls or for women, keep it very simple and appropriate for the day's work. Okay, it doesn't have to be jazzy. It doesn't have to be like a plain Jane. So it is often said, that's why I've even mentioned over here, that wearing no makeup at all is almost as bad as wearing too much makeup, right? So keep it very subtle. Don't have to add a lot of shades like you're going for a party, but ensure that you have extremely subtle makeup for the day when you're going for the interview, right? Next is about your hair. Again, your hair again has to be well shampooed. Avoid oily hair. Avoid having the highlights of red and green colors that are really into the fashion. Okay, preferably the black hair, or if you added some highlights of brown, it's fine. But ensure they are neatly combed and they are preferably off the face. It said that there's a study that says that women are used to touching their hair almost 18 times a day. Avoid doing that. Okay, so this will again come with practice to most of us, but ensure that you don't end up touching your hair time and again. Next is definitely hands and nails. Of course, you also have to ensure that your hands are dry and clean when you come in for an interview. Along with that, the nails again have to be clean. They have to trimmed and sculpted well. If you want to apply nail paint, you can. If you don't wish to, you are absolutely fine to not do. But especially if you apply nail paint, ensure that they are not any unusual or shocking nail colors. They have to be very plain, be it white or be it beige, very simple colors that should not stand out and take the or distract the interviewer who's come for it, who's interviewing you, right? So always be conservative and go your traditional ways when you groom yourself to go for appear for an interview. Okay, these are a few basics that I felt that you should really take care of. Okay, besides that, there are a few more do's prior to the interview, that you come in for. One, avoid using strong perfumes, as many people can be allergic to them. You may be used to as a personality of, using a very strong perfume, avoid it. You don't know how the interviewer is or how would he react to it. Okay. Carry a professional looking folder. Okay. Your professional folder should have your mark sheets, your resume, your certificates, a professional looking pen, very important, and a passport size photograph. Whether your interviewer has informed you to carry or not informed you to carry, by default, you have to carry all of these things. Okay, don't wait for the interviewer to inform you about it. Keep all the documents ready one night prior. Don't think that if you don't have a photograph 1 hour before the interview, you'll go to a lab, you'll get it clicked, and then you'll put it. You will create a lot of hush rush in your for your interview. So ensure all of these things are ready in a professional looking folder. Very important. Okay. Next could be reaching the venue. So we all are very used to that. If we have an interview at 10 o'clock, we'll think that, we'll reach between 9:45 and 10. We keep a buffer of 5-10 minutes. Avoid doing that. Ensure that you reach the venue half an hour prior to the scheduled time. Always, always, always. Even if your workplace is 5 minutes away from your house, ensure you reach the venue half an hour prior. Okay. It's always better to sit back, relax, get freshened over there and appear for the interview in a relaxed form rather than rushing it to the venue, right? If you're running late by any chance due to of all the precautions that you've taken, if you're still running late, be courteous to inform the interviewer that you are running late and you will reach in a few minutes. Okay. Next, keep your mobile phone on switched off or silent mode. I leave it to you which of the ones do you prefer, but it's always ensure that you don't kind of fidget with the resume or get distracted while you're appearing for the interview. Next, very importantly, be yourself and be prepared to market yourself with strong words, right? You've come with the interview, your resume is in place, you've done your preparation, you have your folder, everything. Very importantly, keep telling yourself positively, okay, that if I am given an opportunity, I will do it well, and not that I think I will do it well, right? Keep saying these positive words, ensure that you remain calm, you remain positive, and send the entire positive message to your body and your soul, right? Becomes very important. Remember this thing, if you've come till the interview stage, means the employer is somewhere convinced about you, your profile, and your knowledge and skills. Now you have to just prove yourself on how are you going to deliver or whatever you have mentioned in your resume. That's the only validation that's going to take place in the interview, right? So be very confident and true to yourself. However, there are also a few don'ts that you need to take care during your interview, which I thought I should highlight it for you. Okay. Firstly, do not read a resume. So usually when they ask, when the interviewer tells you that, to help us walk through your resume, don't end up keeping the document in front of you and reading the resume. It doesn't give a great image. And that's why I told you know your resume well, right? Know it, prepare it, and then accordingly answer the question, right? Do not use slang words or native words. We are very used to using, ha in between or acha or ki, something like that. Avoid doing that. Be professional when you talk. If you're used to using that, try practicing it that you don't end up using the slang words when you appear for an interview, right? Do not lie to an interviewer. Very, very important. Okay. If you end up lying, you will not realize, but you can get caught with your eye movement and hand movement, and you will not even realize it. The interviewer who's sitting, who's pretty much sharp, he will catch hold of this and will put you in a soup, right? So avoid lying to the interviewer. Okay. Do not criticize your former company. So this is specifically for the experienced candidates, right? Avoid, if you have worked in a company, don't try to criticize that, my boss was not well or the culture was not great. It doesn't talk well about you. Because if you are doing today about a past employer, going forward, you can do that with the company that you're also applying, right? So never criticize your former company. Never ever if you have experienced, right? Do not get emotional. So there may be instances, where you are explaining things about it or you're substantiating some incident. Ensure you do not get emotional about it while discussing the interview, right? Be very clear, convey the message, convey the incident, and be calm and firm. Last, do not argue with your interviewer. It becomes very, very important, right? What happens that, probably the interviewer is asking you something and you may have a difference of opinion when it comes to the interviewer. It's absolutely fine. You can agree to disagree. Okay. But don't grow to an extent where you kind of go to prove a point. Convey your points, convey your thought, your opinion, and leave it over there. So take it in a calm and positive manner, put forward your thoughts and leave it in a polished manner. Okay. Last but not the least, probably while you are going through an interview and an interview is going well, you may think, oh, my interview is going well, and you may end up getting overconfident, which gets visible in your body language, and that can be construed as you may get a little arrogant towards the end of the interview, right? So always ensure that you are confident, but don't become overconfident while giving your interview, right? So these are a few do's and don'ts that I felt that you really need to keep in mind before you appear for the interview, right? So, so what are the points that we've covered? We know what is a resume. We've prepared our resume. We've done some preparatory stage. What all things do I need to cover? What are the first impressions? What do I have to do? What do I have to research about the company? I have the grooming etiquettes in mind. What is to be done? I have, sort of some do's and don'ts and how I'm going to prior and be there. The next comes as the interview day. When you know that you've been selected by a company, you've been called shortlisted by a company, and you have to go for the interview, right? So what are the some of the typical interview questions that usually get cropped up, and can we be a little more prepared for those interviews, right? Which are those typical interview questions? So what are some of the questions that really comes to our mind? One of them is, tell me something about yourself. I think this is one of the most standard questions that we often hear, that the interviewer may end up asking us. So, can we have this practice? Can we prepare on what do we really want to answer when such a question really comes up? Tell me something about yourself. Second could be, tell me something about yourself that is not on your resume. Oh, can there be such a question? Yes, there can be such a question. I could just say that, tell me something that I don't see in your resume. So you have to be prepared. What are the points that you've not covered or which would really like to add, which the interviewer would want to know. So you'll have to think and prepare on it. Third could be, why B pharmacy? When there are so many specializations, why did you really end up choosing B pharmacy as your course? So you really need to think through that. Why did you land up in the pharma field? Was it by accident or was it by some reasons? And ideally, your responses should be that you have thought through and with the planning that you've landed in the field of B pharmacy. There could be another topic that, a question that, which has been your favorite subject and why? Right? So you being into the field, you can prepare that, which is a been favorite subject and why do you think it's a favorite subject? Then there could be a typical question that the HRs end up asking on, what are your strengths? What are your key strengths? Which could be, let us know what your 2 or 3 strengths about it. You need to think through what are the interviews, what are the strengths that you would want to showcase, which will relate to the skills that the job role really is, requiring, right? So you need to think through on your strengths. Then it comes about what are your areas of improvement, right? All of us have some weakness or areas of improvement. Which one would I want to highlight, which will showcase that yes, I have some areas, but does not really put you in a bad picture in front of the interviewer. Then there could be a question of why should we hire you, right? Or and it could also be on why do you want to join us. Now, these are very two different questions where people really kind of get confused with, right? One is, why should we hire you? And second is, why do you want to join us? The responses to both these questions are going to be very different. So your answers to this has to be very clear, right? Then there could be, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now, right? Or what are your career goals? There could be these kind of questions that you can get from the interviewer. And there could be a question like, are you willing to relocate anywhere in India? Like probably if it's a sales related opportunity, there are people that we look forward that people can be placed anywhere in Pan India. So you can have your answers ready, whether you're willing to relocate or not willing to relocate, along with your reasons that you would really have. Okay. Next, a very obvious question that we expect that the HR would really ask us is, what is your salary expectation? What do you think, what do you really want as a salary expectation? And besides this, there's also a question which usually the HR ends up asking you is that, do you have any questions for us? Okay. I think that's an opportunity that you should not miss and you should end up asking about it. Right. So I've just listed these few questions that you know in advance and you can start preparing your responses for these. Right. They have to sound very confident, very natural when you're talking about them. So to elaborate this further, I'll just give you some examples. When I say about tell me something about yourself. So what are the points that I'm really wanting you to cover about it, right? It could be something about your name, your city. Ensure when you're talking to the interviewer, your tone is maintained very well. Your voice tone plays a very important role of what you're saying, right? So you can start with that, my name is Rishi Sharma. I hail from the pink city of India, that is Jaipur. You can also say that, I belong from Jaipur, I come from Jaipur, I reside in Jaipur. But if you add some adjective about your city, it always kind of, flaunts about your knowledge about your city that is famous for, right? So it comes with, my name is Rishi Shah and I hail from the pink city of India, that is Jaipur, right? Next, you can cover about your family background. You can say that, I stay with my family. My family comprises of my father, who's working in so and so company in so and so capacity. My mother is a housewife. My brother is pursuing his BCom from so and so college from the city of Pune, so on and so forth, right? If you have spouse and kids, accordingly you can mention. Okay. Don't spend too much of time in family background. They don't want to know about your maternal and paternal side, but do mention about your brother, sister, your parents, and spouse and kids if any. Okay. Next, you will talk about your education qualification. As I said, most of us sitting over here are freshers or with, probably with 1 year or 2 years of experience. So talk about your education qualification in the descending order. Talk about your B pharmacy or M pharmacy first, then B pharmacy, then about your standard 12th, your standard 10th. When did you pass out? How did you score? Very importantly, right? Now, here is a point where probably you do not want to mention percentages if you've not have great percentages, though you've put it in the resume. So you can always say that, I've cleared my standard 12th in the second class. And, or you can say that all throughout I have got distinction amongst all my semesters. And, I've fared pretty much well. It is up to you. If you have great scores, please mention about it. If you don't have great scores, you can always cover it up by talking about the first class or second class that you've really landed in. Okay. Next is about your work experience. So if you have any work experience or business exposure that we spoke about, you're going to give the details, the company that you work, the period, the year, the industry, the company, the location, the salary, the benefits, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got, the benefits that you got, the salary that you got. Then talk about your roles and responsibilities in a very short and crisp manner. Then talk about your positions of responsibility in the company. Then talk about your positions of responsibility in the company. Then talk about your positions of responsibility in the company. Then talk about your positions of responsibility in the company. Then talk about your positions of responsibility in the company. Then talk about your positions of responsibility in the company. Um, I think it got missed out. So yes, so we were on hobbies and interest, right? Which was optional. So if you have something great about your hobbies and interest, do mention about it. If you think that you don't have any great interest on hobby, you can skip this part. Okay. So now this is something that the outflow, but you need to practice this, right? How am I going to talk? How's going to be my tone? Tell me something about yourself should not be that you're talking for the next 3 minutes. Probably you can wrap it up within 1.5 or 2 minutes and talk about yourself, and probably in this flow of information that you can be talking about. Okay. Next could be a question. Tell me something about yourself that is not on your resume. Okay. You may suddenly just get anxious that, what's really this, how do I really talk about? So think about your personal qualities that you've not included in your resume that you would want to highlight about, right? Or for example, understand what is a job profile. So if your job profile includes a client interaction, right? So you can talk about how you have exceptional oratory skills, or that you can highlight your problem solving skills if you have, which will match with the requirement of the job and role as well. Okay. Or you can also talk about the focus on your work ethics to enrich your answer, okay, and impress the interviewer. So this is something that each one of us will have to prepare in our own ways on what would we want to highlight it, right? Think about the multiple incidences in advance, that how would you want to answer this question if they ask you to share, right? If I say that, I have great oratory skills, so what makes you say that? Or when do you do feel that you have great oratory skills? So you need to have those incidences in your mind that you know what it is, when did you prove it, and it has to be something which is as latest in the last 6 8 months. It cannot be something that I've done in school and I'm trying to relate with an incident, right? So be prepared with what kind of response you want to give. Okay. Next could be why B Farm. Okay, why did I offer B Pharmacy? Very importantly, build a convincing story for yourself. Okay, even if you don't have one. It should not be that by accident I ended up coming into B Pharmacy. That should not be the reason, right? So it could be that, probably I've always been fascinated from my childhood. I've been fascinated on, how are the drugs prepared, or how does a drug end up curing, how does a small pill end up curing such a big disease? I've always been very curious and inquisitive about it. And that's the reason I've chosen B Pharm as my specialization. Okay. So it could be anything. I think you pursuing this course could have better reasons on, what you are a better judge on what response can you craft and design for answering why have you taken up B Farm, right? So ensure that you have this story in place before you appear for an interview. Okay, that why have you gone for B Farm? Next is which is your favorite subject and why? I'm sure there are various subjects that you have, and you may have your own reasons for liking them. But probably if I really put in that, my favorite subject is pharmacology because it really interests me to learn on what a drug does to the body and what a body does to a drug. Okay. When you give such a response, the employer would the HR or the person interviewing you would think, okay, this person really knows about his subject. He's really curious, he's inquisitive, and it's kind of a storytelling that you are forming in terms of your resume, that why is it B Farm, why is your favorite subject, and it talks about what you really want to do or where does your interest really lie. It again starts forming a very positive impression on the HR person, right? Next, a very standard and typical question that we have is on your strengths and weaknesses, right? So why do you think does the interviewer want to know about your strengths and weaknesses? The employer really wants to know that what are your strengths, how are they going to be related to the skills and the job role that you offer, and basis your strengths, will you end up being an asset to the organization, or will you just be another average employee who's joined and who's come to just earn money, right? So you have to really think through of your strengths, of what kind of strengths you want to list and talk about while elaborating and substantiating the same, right? So probably some strengths could be, I could say my strength is interpersonal skills. Okay. The HR may ask you to elaborate that why do you think what do you mean by interpersonal skills, right? It seems like a heavy word, but what does it really mean? So probably it has to talk about that interpersonal skills. When it comes to, it means or it implies that probably you're great at communicating, you're great at making relationships, you are an active listener, you understand verbal non-verbal communication, right? You know how to negotiate. It implies a lot many things, right? So he'll say, what makes you say that? So talk about some incident, while organizing an activity, or how is it that you felt, or you got to know that you feel your interpersonal skills are one of your strengths, right? Next could be adaptable. I know that I'm adaptable in all kinds of situations that really come across, So mention 2 3 incidences that have happened in the last 1 year, which makes you feel that you are adaptable, right? Next could be team player. You can say that I have been a team player. How have you been? Have you participated in sports? Have you been in various activities of the college? And how you are able to gel with each and every person and ensure that the work or the activity gets delivered to the best of its abilities, right? I could be creative. So how have you been creative in the last 3 months, 6 months? In what ways have you been creative? I could say my strength is diligent. I'm pretty much diligent and meticulous when it comes to my work, right? So how does that go about? You will have to explain that. How have you think that you are diligent? I could talk about learning agility. So, what do you mean by learning agility? So, I can say that I have the ability and willingness to learn, okay, from all kinds of experiences, okay, and use those lessons to perform it effectively in every situation, right? So, probably you can think about as recent as COVID, what have you done, or, what have you learned from this experience and how are you utilizing it? There are different ways of you can talk about a learning agility. So, be prepared to answer your strengths, when have you used it latest, and a couple of incidences to elaborate on why do you consider it's your strength. Okay. I'm passionate about any work that comes on my table. I ensure I give my complete 100% and dedication and ensure that the work gets delivered. Okay, that's a strength that you're talking about. So you don't need to have 5 and 10 strengths in your mind. Okay, at the max the person may ask you 1, 2, or 3 of your strengths. So be very clear on your top 3 strengths as an individual that you're going to talk about. I would recommend that don't end up forming these strengths, because each one of us have these strengths within us, right? It's not that a person is born without having any strengths, but it's about how do you talk about it, how do you convince them. Okay. Next, we have weakness, or you can also say as areas of improvement, right? So what really is a weakness? First thing first, we all need to admit that all of us do have certain areas of improvement. None of us are perfect. So admit it. It's better to admit that, yes, I have some weakness. It's better to be aware about the weakness and also mention what are you doing to overcome those weaknesses, right? You can't end up talking about a weakness that becomes a limitation for the role that you're going to appear for, or for the interview that you're going to appear for, right? So probably weakness has to be those in a way which could be probably your excess of strength, which ends up being a weakness. That's another way of looking at. To elaborate what I'm talking about, detail orientation, or I can say I'm a detail oriented person. I think when I hear this word, I would say I think it's a strength that you're detail oriented, you get into the depth of the subject, you do this and that. But how do I convey this? I am detail oriented. However, because of my idea of getting into the perfection details of everything, I end up consuming a lot of time and I may end up missing my deadlines to be met. Okay. So you're talking about a weakness, which is actually a strength, but why is it getting converted to a weakness? And I also see a scope that this is something that the person can go back and make it as a strength, which is his weakness right now. Okay. So think through delegation. When a task is given to me, I somewhere prefer doing it myself rather than taking help from others, because I'm not too sure about the quality of work or the standard of work will the person complete. So I avoid delegation, right? So one, it can be taken as positive, because when you're an individual contributor, you will not get a chance to delegate. But probably once you become a manager and you grow up on the higher roles, delegation becomes very important. So what have you been doing? How do you start building the trust, and how do you start delegating your work? Right? Very, very important. Third could be spontaneity. It could be I'm a person who comes with a lot of structure, and when a certain work is given, I'm not very spontaneous in completing it and giving the results. Okay, so I need time to think through and make it. So this can be an area of improvement that I have, and I'm trying to work upon that. How can I reduce? How can I move from, you can say, from hard work to smart work, right? And make my work and come up with the results in a spontaneous manner if required, right? Another one could be straightforward, right? Probably that the role that you're applying for may require the skill set of you being to be diplomatic, right? But I could say that I am straightforward. If you ask me a question, I'll say, no, I don't know how to do it, right? But it's very important when I say that it's my weakness, I say I am straightforward. At the same time, I am not rude to the person I'm saying that. Okay. I say very politely and in a very convenient way that I do not know how to work upon this, right? So this is about a weakness which can actually be a strength, because all of us in our corporate life would prefer someone to be straightforward, right? And not be manipulative or diplomatic. But you can say that this ends up being a weakness for me in this role because I am straightforward, right? So you see, the strengths and weaknesses could be various adjectives, various words you can use. But how do you convince the interviewer with what incidences is what is going to play the key when you answer this question. So figure out which are your top three strengths, which are your two major areas of improvement, and prepare a detailed story and incidences around it when you answer it. Okay. And very importantly, when is the most recent you've utilized your strengths? Okay. And very importantly, what are you really doing after you've realized these are your areas of improvement? So what are you doing to overcome them? Very important questions, which will talk a lot about your personality to the interviewer. Okay. Next, the question could be on what are your career goals, right? So career goals again becomes very important. You know, it could be that the interviewer wants to know that do you have a goal or ambition, or you just want to get into a job, earn money, and go back home, or are you thinking about a serious career where you're going to take some concentrated efforts and to ensure that you reach your goal. So one could simply be that I want to be the CEO of the company. That's my ambition or that's my goal. But that's not what they're looking at. Whenever they talk about asking about your career goals, always break it into your short term and your long term goals. Okay. You can always say, my short term goal is to utilize my skills and improve my professional career in a reputed pharmaceutical company. Okay. Or probably the company that you're applying for, you can name that company. Right. And you can say that my long term goal is to be at a leadership position in that company. Okay. Or you could probably say my short term is to utilize my skills and improve my professional career. My long term is to become the marketing manager of so and so company or be the division head of so and so company, right? But always break up your career goals into the short term and the long term when you answer this question. Okay. Next is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is again a very obvious question. It really talks about, have you thought through, are you planning for your career, or are you just going with the flow where your life is taking in, or do you want to have control about your professional career, right? So again, there are various ways that you could respond to this question. Okay. It could be as simple as, I'm looking to grow with the company, learn from the best, and when ready, take on to more responsibilities. That could be one very simple straight answer for me. Or I could kind of say it that I would like to deliver to the best of my abilities while learning from the best. So you're already kind of, giving, appreciating or praising the employer that, you are already the best and that's why I'm over here to learn from you. Okay. Having said that, I see myself 5 years down the road growing into a managerial role and demonstrating my managerial capabilities, right? Because the initial 2, 3 years, we all start with individual contributor roles and then move on to the managerial roles. So this is where I really see myself in the next 5 years, right? Because you cannot talk about that you want to be the CEO or MD in the next 5 years, which is not possible. So you can stop your responses about your managerial capabilities. Another way of you can managing this question is that though it is hard to envision where will I be, however, I can assure you that I will do my best and have a wonderful career at so and so company with your guidance and able leadership, right? So you're always kind of saying, and you're involving the interviewer that it's going to be a joint effort for me to see where do I land in 5 years. Okay. And you're giving due importance to the company so that your career is built up in the way that you really wish to happen, right? So these are some of the ways again that you can answer this question. If you can come up with a better answer to craft it, you can definitely do that. Okay. These are just a few points that I'm sharing with you on how do you have to frame your answers when you appear for this interview. Okay. So next the question comes in that why do you want to join us, right? Again, remember we've done a lot of research about the company. Okay. We have our career goals. We have our things. Try and relate those responses. Okay. Talk about all the research you've done about the company and connect those with the reasons on why do you want to be associated with the market leader at the start of your career. How the amalgamation of both will be the reason on why do you want to join a particular organization. Okay. Include the things that you like to talk about the company and relate those to your career goals. Okay. That will be the best way to answer on why do you want to join us. Rather than only saying that, I want to join because you're the number one company, that is not enough. Okay. Related to your goals, related with things, and then end up saying that why do you want to join a specific company. Okay. A similar question with some different words are, why should we hire you? In the prior in this previous slide it was, why do you want to join a company? The next question is, why should a company hire you? Okay, what different are you want to bring onto the table that I should be offering you and not the second person? Okay. So many of us would want to end up saying that, you should hire me because I'm a positive and a hardworking person. It's not a very convincing answer to the interviewer. Okay, everybody will say he or she is positive. Everybody will say he or she is a hardworking person. Can you elaborate? Can you prove this? Looks a little difficult. You can't really convince it, right? So what could be a better response? A better response could be that you should hire me because I have a hungry to learn attitude, right? I'm flexible and I'm quick to learn. I'm passionate about my work. Now, don't just end up saying these words. End up elaborating it with the projects, initiatives that you've done, and how are those initiatives leading to on your attitude about your learning attitude, your flexibility, your quickness to learn, and you're passionate about work, right? So relate those answers and responses due to which you should be hiring me. Okay. Or it could also come as very simple that with the knowledge and skill set that I possess, if given an opportunity, I would be an appropriate fit and will do justice to the role. And that is why you should really hire me. Okay. So related with your skills, related with your strengths, related with your experiences that you've done, and answer the question of why should we hire you? Don't just leave it that hire me because I'm a positive person, I'm a hardworking person. That will not convince the interviewer. Okay. Next comes in a very standard question on what is your salary expectation, right? So stating the salary that I'm expecting so and so money, or stating a range, it's a big no. Okay, at the start of the career, we look in for more experience, we look in for more kind of knowledge that we can gain from the company. Okay, so a smarter way to answer this question is that right now at this juncture of my life, my priority is to work with the best organization like yours at the start of my career. Okay, so as to gain knowledge and experience, I will happily accept the salary which is at par with the company norms. Okay, this is one way of conveying on what you're really saying, that I don't want to point out a figure that what am I expecting. There could be another way of saying where you put the pressure on the company back itself, that ABC is such a reputed organization, and I'm sure the employer will offer me a salary which is at par with the market considering my qualifications, strengths, and skills. Okay, that's also an answer that you can give when you talk about a salary expectation. Okay, you've conveyed your expectation in a way that you don't want to be underpaid, and I'm sure the company will not overpay you, but I want to get the salary which matches to my caliber and my skill sets. Okay. Last but not the least, a very important question that comes in, that do you want to ask us anything? I would recommend all of you to not miss this opportunity of asking a question. It talks a lot about your interest levels about the organization. Okay, you have been listening actively to the interviewer and wanting to know more about it. So always first thank the interviewer for giving you the opportunity, okay, for the overall interview and the question being asked. And then you could put forward your questions that I would like to understand about the growth aspects of my role in this organization. Or if you have some clarity you need for your roles and responsibilities, you can ask something about that which you are not very clear. Please do not end up asking that, please let me know, have I been selected? Or, what is the salary that you're going to offer me? These are the questions the interviewer is not expecting you to ask, because that he or she will any which ways communicate and convey to you once they've come up with the results. Okay. But ensure you do end up asking the question about your growth aspects or roles and responsibilities. Don't say that, no, I don't have anything to ask and everything has been conveyed. Okay. Figure out what are the questions that have been coming up and get those questions addressed. Okay. So to sum up, this is all what really comes in, when you really have to do in terms of the interview. Okay. There are no really right or wrong answers that we really have. Okay. We can form our own answers, responses, and we have to convince and market ourselves in a way that we are the right fit for the job and role that we've come for, right? We have a resume, we have prepared, we have a grooming etiquettes, and we've answered a few questions with our answers prepared, with the best of the answers that we can give to the HR person, which are convincing. However, there's one more slide that I thought that I should add in, which may become the trend now, considering the current scenario that you have, and probably social distancing is going on the norm. There are different ways of the interviewer wanting to interview you besides a regular resume. Okay, so basically, it can be that the interviewer may end up telling you that probably come out with a 1 minute video of yours, okay, on why should we hire you, or convey in a 1 minute that tell me something about yourself and share your video with us, and then we will come back to you, right? They may want to go away with a standard way of just reading the resume and then deciding on whether the person is shortlisted, right? Now that puts a lot of pressure on us because a lot of us get very anxious, when we have to record a video, we have to talk about ourselves, which is not very easy. Okay. So what do we do? But going forward, this can come as a scenario. So a few things on how should your video resume be? How short can it be? So it should ideally be not more than a minute. It should end within a minute. And how can it be short, concise, impactful, and unique? You need to start thinking about it. Okay. So firstly, you will have to ensure that you are using a smartphone. You yourself are not doing the recording. There's a second or third person who's recording for you while you're, framing your answers. You're wearing formals, your hair is still neatly combed, though you are not gone to the interview stage, but you're going to ensure that your video resume is also in a very formal attire. Okay. You're going to ensure that your background is completely clean. It's a noise-free environment. There should not be, in the audio, a lot of noise of the cars or the whistles that really coming in. And ensure that you have a good lighting on your face, when the video is getting recorded. Last but not the least, you have to ensure that you're looking positive and confident. Okay. So these are the basic things that you will first have to take care when you're recording your resume. Okay. Then you will again have to think through on what are the contents that I like to cover. Because when I talk about how am I talking, what do you tell me something about yourself in a face to face interview, I may end up, kind of talking about for 1.5 to 2 minutes. But here, I really need to think through on what are the areas I want to touch upon for the interviewer to know about me, right? So it would start basically with your introduction, your name, your academics, your highest qualification about your academics, your work experience, your business exposure, your projects. So we'll follow the same structure that we've been talking about from the start, about your name, personal information, academics, business exposure, positions of responsibility, initiatives that you have, and your certifications. Right now, covering all of that within 1 minute, also adding in that why do you want to join the company and why will I be the best fit also needs to get covered within 1 minute, right? This is a task that we really need to think on how do we start preparing. Okay. So this is one sample that I really thought that I could give you of the content of the video resume. Okay. Which could basically start with that, hello, good morning. My name is Rohi Sharma. I've completed my graduation in B Farm from Mumbai University in May 2020. Okay. All my semesters, I've scored more than 70%. Okay. Along with my studies, I have also been involved in a lot of extracurricular activities that, like, I was a captain of a basketball team during my second year of pharmacy. I've also represented my college in the inter-college debate competition. Talking about my strengths, I have excellent communication skills and a great team player. Okay. I've also undertaken a couple of projects, one of which being preparation of novel drug formulation of rose gel. Okay. I'll stop over here right now. So if you go to see in these first 4 or 5 lines, I've been very clear and specific for the interviewer to know my name, when have I cleared my graduation, what were my scores, what are the additional curricular activities that I have taken, okay, what are the specific things, what are my strengths, okay, and what are the projects. Okay, I've been very specific talking about which year. This will give a lot of clarity to the interviewer where he knows what is he looking for. Okay. Besides it, I can talk about when I know, for example, that I'm applying for a sales role. So I can talk that, I feel I'm good at sales because this is something I'm really passionate about. Okay. I'm a go getter who always believes in setting targets and achieving the same. I would join this company since this company will provide me an excellent opportunity to learn and grow. You're already talking about the company, why you want to join that company. I assure you that if provided an opportunity, I will give my 100% and will prove to be a great asset to your organization. You're giving a reason to the interviewer that why should they hire you. Okay, you were not going to let them down, right? And further, you can add that if you would like to know more about me, I will be waiting to hear from you. Thank you. Okay. So I think if you end up reading this entire content, you've communicated all about yourself, probably within 1 minute in the right tone, understanding how much information you want to give, how much specific you have to be, and you can, talk about it being very clear and specific about your role over here. When you give such a good video to the person, the employer knows and starts forming your image along with your resume. And there are high chances of you getting shortlisted along with your video resume. Okay. So I'm not saying that many companies have moved already to the concept of video resume, but we can expect this in the coming up months or in very soon. Okay. Some of the companies have already opted for this kind of audiovisual resume along with a regular resume. Okay, so there's no harm in preparing a video and being prepared on how to talk confidently via the video as well. Okay, so I think overall, this was all about my course content where I really wanted to tell you on what all preparation can you really do. Okay, how can you get prepared? And overall, to sum up, is what I would say that interview is basically trying to market yourself, okay, and tell people very convincingly about your skills and abilities and knowledge and how are you the best fit for that particular role that you're applying for. And trust me, no other person can do justice than you while talking about yourself. So ensure you're true to yourself, you're confident, you are realistic. Okay, they are very important. Avoid being extremely anxious because you may end up ruining your interview because of you being conscious or you getting nervous. That is why practice and re-practice will become extremely important. Okay. So
perfectly.
wishing each one of you So, wishing each one of you all the best. You are the future of India that lies in your hands. You are the future of India that lies in your hands. Do well in whatever you do with complete dedication and um, things that you can go ahead do very well. So, stay home, stay positive, stay home, stay safe, and stay digital. And be positive that you will crack through the interviews and do very well for yourself. Thank you. Pranav, over to you.
Thank you so much, Richa. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of information that our viewers have got today, and they will be able to implement this in their future CVs that they prepare, and a lot of things that they can implement in the interviews that they face. It was a very informative session. Richa, we have some questions if you'd like to answer and address those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have one question which says, what would be the acceptable length of a resume in number of
Hmm.
pages?
Okay. So, as I mentioned in the start of my presentation, because most of us are the people who are with zero to negligible experience, it's always better to limit your resume to one page only. Okay. Try to keep the information crisp. Leave some information for you to talk at length in your interview rather than putting everything on the piece of paper. So, ensure that your resume is one pager only. Have I answered that question, Pranav?
Yeah, just a moment, Richa.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
just framing the next question.
Okay.
Yeah, Richa. The next question is uh, during this COVID era, a lot of students are attending a lot of webinars and they have compiled a huge number of certificates for attending those webinars. So the question is, do they include these webinar certificates in their CV?
Well, I'm sure they surely can include the details of the webinar certificates that they have gathered. However, I would say if it's, I would suggest select the top two, three which you felt were very important webinars, which you would want to put in a resume. So if I have probably included, or have 10 certificates, you will not find space to include all 10 of them. So include the top three certificates which you think are very important, which will add value to your resume, and mention those on the resume. Others you can definitely mention when you appear for your personal interview with the HR.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
There's one more question. There are a few more questions actually. The next
sure.
question is, certain students have some gaps in their careers with respect to their education, or some of them have taken a drop for a year. So,
Right.
and if they have not done anything in that particular year, how should they
Hmm.
address that gap during the interview?
First and foremost, if you have a gap in your resume, don't try to hide it because the interviewer will definitely kind of catch hold of it when they go through your resume. It's always better to admit that yes, you've had a gap. However, again, build up a convincing story on why that gap has happened, okay, and how did you utilize that time during that gap period, okay. Giving a response that I dropped out probably for some preparation of exams and this is what I was doing is absolutely fine, but probably you have a drop because of some other unexpected reasons. Come up with a story where even though you've taken a dropout or a gap, how have you utilized that 1 year? What have you really done in that will become very important to clarify and talk about. So don't simply just say that, I had a drop and I was just sitting at home doing nothing. That will not give a very positive image or impression about you.
All right.
Yeah.
The next question we have is, what should we answer when the interviewer asks us about our former company or the former
Okay.
employer?
Okay. So Pranav, the question again.
Yeah,
What
it
do we
says,
answer?
what to say when asked about a former company.
Well, you can definitely say that, you can say with complete pride that, I was associated with so and so company. This was my roles and responsibilities. The reason I had to quit the company was because of so and so reasons. So you can definitely be very clear and talk all the positives about the company. See, don't ever talk about, what the company did not have to offer. Always focus on what were your learning experiences about that company and always showcase it in the right stride. Okay. That is something that is very important.
All right.
Hmm.
And there's one more question which says that a person who has asked this question, he's not able to identify his weakness or strengths. So how would you suggest, what are the key factors that could lead to writing the weakness and strengths that a person can try to recognize?
Well, I think what I would suggest to this person is I think that you need to get in touch with your seniors or mentors, okay, whom you interact with, who know you very well. I will not say friends because with friends, they will not be able to understand your right strengths and areas of improvement. But if you have your seniors, your mentors, your professors whom you interact on a daily basis or you've interacted at length, they could help you identify some strengths and areas of improvement. And while they gauge and they question you on a lot of things, is when you can also talk that these are my areas where I have always felt, positive about, or I think I can do this thing very well. And together, you all can form and understand that what is the strengths that you would want to talk about. Ideally, it's something that you yourself know what are you very good at. But if you're not able to figure that out, please reach out to your mentors and superiors and have a discussion. Don't directly go and ask your professor that please tell me what is my strength. He will not be able to answer this question for you, right? Because it's you and yourself. But get into a discussion on what are your areas of strength, or what are your area of interest, or what do you think you've done well that you yourself are proud of, okay, in the last so many years, which may be related to work, at home, at your studies, and then end up building up your strengths and accordingly your areas of improvement.
Okay,
Yeah.
there are a few more questions. We
Okay.
have one question where a student has asked how to answer a tricky question. You might have addressed this before in during the webinar, but the
Mm-hmm.
question says, if an interviewer asks, "What can you offer what others cannot?"
Okay.
So how do I answer this question? What can you offer what others cannot?
So basically, anytime when the interviewer asks you a question and you don't know what to answer, you can always take a few seconds, take a deep breath, and then form your answer. You don't have to rush into answering the question. That's the first key. Okay. Secondly, when this question is asked, think about your strengths, think about your skill sets, and show the amalgamation on what different do you have in order to offer to the interviewer. Okay, think about that this is my strength, this is a job role requirements that I really have, and show that how will you prove to be an asset for that particular role. That's the best way to answer on what can I offer on the table.
All right. There's one question which says, if I'm attaching a CV on email, what should be mentioned in the cover letter or on the in the body of the email?
Okay. So in the cover letter, you can of course give a very brief introduction about yourself. That to give you a brief, my name is so and so. I've completed my graduation from so and so college in this year. Okay. You can mention in 1-2 lines about your work experience if you have any. Okay. And also mention that what are you aspiring to be? What is your career objective basically. So I'm seeking a role in the field of sales, working with a reputed organization in order to kind of utilize my skills and capabilities to the company's overall objective. You can come up with something, and that is all that you can have in your cover letter. Your cover letter need not have more than probably 8 to 10 points. It has to be very specific and basic, which gives a brief about you. You did not include about a family background and detail about your scores. Talk about your work experience and what are you really kind of seeking as a career. That is what you can write.
All right. There's just one last question which I have received so far.
Yeah.
Uh, is when you mentioned about making the 1 minute video for the
Hmm.
interviewer.
Hmm.
Do we need to mention only the final year marks, or do we are we okay if we mention the previous year's marks as well?
Well, I have not told you that this is the best and the only way that you can really answer. I've given you an indication on what all can you cover. However, don't get into semester wise, answering that, what are your scores. You can, at the max, you can talk about your third year and your fourth year scores in your B Farm. Okay. And you can probably add a line that, I've scored distinction in my standard 10th and 12th. Okay. And in my B Pharmacy third year, I've scored 86%. And in my fourth year, I'm still awaiting my results, or I've scored so much. That is more than enough, because you don't want your entire time being spoken only about your academics, because you have a limitation of 1 minute.
Right,
Okay. You can always modify it as per your needs.
right. We have
Yeah.
got one more.
Okay.
Richa, if you have time.
Oh, yeah, yeah, sure. Tell me.
The next question is again, it's similar to something that the student said, that we are attending a lot of webinars these days.
Okay.
At the same time, they're attending a lot of certificate. They are pursuing a lot of certificate courses these days.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
question is that should they mention all the certificate courses, or should they mention relevant certificate courses to the job profile, or what is it?
So I think that's something that you can really customize, is what I would say. Okay. And I'll again repeat what I have said. If I've attended probably say only 3 webinars, which I feel I would want to highlight it, I would definitely put it in my resume. Okay. However, if I've attended 10, 15 seminars and such webinars that I really have attended, um, giving those details, acquiring a lot of space in the resume is not recommended. So if you think that these webinars were specific to the role that I'm applying, mention only those relevant ones. Okay. To another role, probably your details about your webinars and certificates could really differ. However, in your personal interview, give a detailed explanation of what all webinars have you attended, what all certifications have you got, and how have you benefited from them. Okay, definitely highlight that in your interview. See, try and understand your resume is a snapshot of your work, of your professional life, or of your career, or of your education. Okay. Everything that you want to talk in your interview should not be in your resume. There has to be some surprise elements, some more things that the interviewer gets to know about you after interviewing you. Okay. So don't mention everything. But if you've attended one or two only, I'm sure you can definitely mention in all your resumes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Richa. I believe that's the last question we have had, and
Okay.
I would just like to thank you once again from the entire from on behalf of the entire team Pharmacad for supporting this e-act program. And
Thank
I
you
would
so
like to
much.
tell all the viewers that this is the first session of the overall 6 session program. We have 5 more sessions lined up for the next weekend, 3 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday, with respect to the different functions in the pharmaceutical industry. I hope you guys can join those as well. At the end of the last session, there will be a feedback form, and that will be circulated to you, where you would be expected to upload your CVs, and we may help to circulate those CVs to our network. So thank you so much, all the viewers, for supporting, and thank you so much, Richa, once again for
Thank
supporting.
you so
And
much, Pranav. My
thank you,
pleasure.
guys. Yeah,
Thank you so much and wish you all the best and be safe. Thank you.
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.